When an alien civilization claimed Earth as its lost colony, no one noticed the signal at first. It arrived quietly, slipping into Earth's networks the way a whisper moves through a crowded room. It did not crash satellites or shut down power grids. It did not announce itself with explosions or flashing lights in the sky. It simply appeared as a repeating pattern hidden deep within background space noise, something scientists had been filtering out for decades. At a small observatory in Chile, a graduate researcher named Elias Romero was the first to pause. He had been staring at static-filled graphs for hours, exhausted and bored, when something strange caught his eye. The signal was too clean, too deliberate. It repeated every 72 seconds, always the same, never drifting. Elias assumed it was a malfunction. But when he checked another telescope database across the world, the same signal was there too. Within 24 hours, observatories on 6 continents confirmed it. The signal wasn't coming from a star, a planet, or a known satellite. It was coming from somewhere just outside Earth's solar system, and it was aimed directly at Earth. Governments were alerted immediately. Publicly, officials said it was probably a natural phenomenon. Privately, emergency meetings were called. Military analysts, astronomers, linguists, and historians were flown into secure facilities. The signal was decoded quickly, not because it was simple, but because it was familiar. It used mathematics, prime numbers, atomic structures, DNA helix patterns. Then came the language. The message was not spoken. It was translated, as if the sender already knew how humans thought. When the first full translation appeared on a classified screen, the room went silent. It read, "We have found you." More text followed. "This world was once ours. You are our descendants. Earth is a lost colony." By the third line, several people stood up, convinced it was a hoax. Others stared at the screen, unable to breathe. One senior astronomer whispered that it was impossible. The message continued. "You were left behind during the collapse. We have returned to reclaim what was forgotten." That night, every major government agreed on one thing. The world was not ready to hear this. But secrecy did not last long. Within 3 days, amateur radio operators and independent scientists noticed the same repeating signal. Someone leaked the translated text. Social media exploded. News channels ran non-stop coverage. The phrase "lost colony" began trending worldwide. Religions struggled to respond. Some leaders called it a test of faith. Others called it a lie sent by demons. Scientists argued openly on television. Historians dug desperately through ancient myths, symbols, and unexplained structures. And ordinary people felt something deeper than fear. They felt recognition. Across the globe, people reported strange dreams. Dreams of vast cities under alien skies. Dreams of leaving Earth behind in great ships. Dreams of being abandoned. Then the ships arrived. They did not burst through the atmosphere in fireballs. They slowed gently, as if respecting the planet. Massive shapes appeared above oceans, deserts, and mountain ranges. They hovered silently, casting shadows large enough to swallow cities. No weapons fired. No attacks came. Instead, a second message was broadcast, this time directly into every screen, every radio, every phone. A single symbol appeared first, a spiral broken in the middle. Then a figure stepped forward. It looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with familiar proportions. But the skin shimmered like polished stone, and the eyes reflected light in unnatural ways. The being spoke calmly, its voice translated instantly into every human language. "We are the Aurelian Continuum," it said. "We are not your enemies. We are your origin." Panic spread instantly. Some people screamed. Others dropped to their knees. In several cities, riots broke out. Militaries went on full alert, fingers hovering over weapons that suddenly felt useless. The Aurelian continued speaking. "Long before your recorded history, before your ice ages and empires, Earth was a living archive. A frontier world. A colony created to preserve our species." Screens showed images of ancient Earth, but different. Vast cities now buried under oceans. Towers where forests now stood. Machines fused with mountains. "You were not meant to forget us," the being said. But time, disaster, and distance erased the truth. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "You are not native to this planet. You were engineered here. You were left behind." Silence followed across the world. Parents looked at their children differently. People touched the ground beneath their feet, suddenly unsure if it truly belonged to them. The idea of humanity, of being Earth's children, shattered in an instant. The Aurelian leader raised its hand. "We have returned," it said, "to reunite the colony with its civilization." A reporter shouted a question through a live feed. "Are you saying you own Earth?" The being did not hesitate. "Yes." Another question followed. "What happens to humans now?" The reply was calm. "That depends on your compliance." In that moment, humanity realized something terrifying. This was not an invasion. It was a reclamation. And Earth, for the first time in history, was being claimed by something that insisted it had always been theirs. After the Aurelian continuum made its claim, the world did not sleep. Cities remained lit through the night. People gathered around televisions, phones, and radios, listening to experts argue and panic in equal measure. Governments urged calm, but their own leaders looked shaken. No one could remember a time when Earth felt so small and exposed. Within hours, the Aurelian ships released something new, not soldiers, not machines, but data. Vast streams of information poured into Earth's networks. They did not hack or force entry. Instead, they requested access, and somehow the systems accepted. Scientists later admitted they never truly understood how. The data contained images, records, and timelines. According to the Aurelians, their civilization was millions of years old. At its height, it spread across dozens of star systems. Earth, they said, was not a random planet they discovered. It was designed. They showed simulations of ancient Earth being shaped. Oceans adjusted. Atmospheres stabilized. Genetic templates seeded into early life forms. Humanity was not created suddenly, but guided slowly, nudged across evolution with careful precision. "You are our legacy," the Aurelian representative explained during a global broadcast. "A living continuation of our species, adapted for this world." Many scientists protested immediately. Evolution, they argued, showed no clear signs of artificial design. But then came the unsettling discoveries. In laboratories across the world, geneticists re-examined human DNA with new urgency. They focused on sections long labeled as junk DNA. According to the Aurelian data, these sections were not junk at all. They were dormant instructions. Triggers. Fragments of genetic code that did nothing, until activated. The Aurelians claimed these sequences matched their own genetic structure. At first, researchers refused to believe it. Then independent teams in different countries reached the same conclusion. The patterns were too precise to be coincidence. Human DNA contained markers that did not belong to Earth's natural evolutionary path. History, too, began to change. Archaeologists revisited ancient sites with new eyes. The pyramids, Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe, structures that seemed too advanced for their time. The Aurelian archives provided images of these sites when they were new. They were not temples. They were infrastructure, energy hubs, communication towers, landing platforms. Under the oceans, hidden by centuries of sediment, sonar scans revealed massive geometric formations. Cities drowned during ancient cataclysms. Some of these ruins matched perfectly with Aurelian star maps. Human myths suddenly felt less symbolic. Stories of gods descending from the sky, of creators who shaped humanity from clay, of great floods meant to erase a failed world. Across cultures that never contacted one another, the same themes appeared. The Aurelians did not deny these stories. "They remembered us," the representative said, "even after forgetting who we were." But not everyone accepted the narrative. A small group of historians and biologists noticed something strange. In the Aurelian timeline, there was a gap. A long one. Millions of years ago, the Aurelians experienced what they called the collapse. A catastrophic event that shattered their empire. Systems failed. Worlds were lost. Earth, they claimed, was abandoned during this chaos. But the records surrounding the collapse were incomplete. Key data was missing. When questioned about it, the Aurelians became vague. Some knowledge was lost, they said. Some truths were too painful to preserve. This only fueled suspicion. Meanwhile, life on Earth began to change. The Aurelian ships did not land, but smaller craft appeared in the skies. They performed scans, collected samples, and mapped human settlements. Environmental changes followed. Polluted regions began to heal unnaturally fast. Dead zones in oceans slowly regained life. At first, people welcomed this. The aliens were fixing Earth. But then came the restrictions. Certain airspaces were declared off-limits. Mining operations were halted. Entire regions were labeled heritage zones under Aurelian authority. Governments protested, but their protests went unanswered. "This planet is under reclamation," the Aurelians announced. "Damage must cease." Human leaders were summoned to a meeting aboard one of the hovering ships. Only a few were allowed inside. When they returned, their expressions were pale and tight. They refused to say what they had seen. Soon after, new laws were proposed worldwide, laws that mirrored Aurelian directives. Limits on reproduction, mandatory genetic screenings, behavioral monitoring under the excuse of planetary stability. People began to realize something horrifying. The Aurelians were not here to share Earth. They were here to manage it. Resistance groups formed quietly at first. Hackers tried to break into Aurelian systems and failed. Protesters marched under banners that read "Earth is not property and we choose our own future." The Aurelians watched without interference. "They are behaving as expected," one of them stated calmly. "Early-stage autonomy often resists reunification." That sentence spread like fire. Early-stage autonomy. Humans were not equals. They were children who had grown up without supervision. And now the parents had returned. But beneath the fear and anger, another emotion was growing: doubt. What if the Aurelians were lying? What if Earth was not a lost colony, but a prison? Or an experiment? Or something they had once failed? As ancient ruins were uncovered and genetic truths emerged, humanity stood at a crossroads. Accept the story offered by beings who claimed ownership, or uncover the parts of history they were not being shown. And somewhere, buried deep in human DNA, something waited. Something the Aurelians clearly feared awakening. The first awakening was an accident. Dr. Myra Cade never meant to change the course of human history. She was a genetic researcher working in an underground laboratory beneath what used to be a university hospital. Officially, her team was assisting the Aurelians by studying dormant DNA sequences. Unofficially, she did not trust them. No one on her team did. The Aurelian data explained how to identify the dormant sequences, but not how to activate them. That omission bothered Myra more than anything else. If humans truly shared origins with the Aurelians, why hide this knowledge? Late one night, while reviewing neural response scans, Myra noticed something strange. The dormant sequences reacted, not to chemicals or radiation, but to specific electromagnetic patterns. Patterns that closely matched human brainwaves during deep emotional stress. Fear, love, loss. These genes were not mechanical switches. They were emotional locks. Myra tested her theory carefully. She recreated the brainwave pattern artificially, feeding it into a genetic stimulator. The result was immediate. One of the samples began expressing proteins that should not exist in a human body. The cell survived. It adapted. Within days, she repeated the test on a willing volunteer, a man named Jonah Reeve, a former soldier who had lost his family during the early riots after the Aurelian arrival. His grief was still raw. His mind naturally produced the very signals Myra needed. When the activation began, alarms screamed through the lab. Jonah collapsed. Then he screamed, not in pain, but in confusion. His heartbeat stabilized at an impossible rhythm. His neural scans showed activity far beyond known human limits. When Jonah opened his eyes, they glowed faintly with a silver hue. He looked at Myra and spoke calmly. "I can hear them," he said. "Not voices. Intentions." Across the planet, Aurelian sensors spiked. For the first time since their return, the continuum reacted with urgency. Their ships adjusted positions. Surveillance increased. Genetic research facilities were suddenly shut down under Aurelian authority. "It has begun," one Aurelian council member said during a private transmission. "The colony is remembering." Myra and her team went into hiding. Jonah's abilities grew rapidly. He could process information faster than any computer. He could sense Aurelian technology even when it was cloaked. More disturbingly, he could influence it, causing systems to hesitate, delay, or shut down entirely. Jonah was not becoming Aurelian. He was becoming something else. The Aurelians finally addressed the world again. They changed their tone. "Certain genetic activations are dangerous," the representative warned. "They were sealed for your protection. Continued experimentation will result in corrective action." People noticed the fear behind the words. Resistance groups now had proof that humanity held something valuable. Something the Aurelians had not expected, or had hoped would never happen. As more awakenings occurred, patterns emerged. Those who activated were not chosen randomly. They were people who had experienced intense emotional trauma, deep empathy, or unbreakable determination. These humans shared strange memories. Not of Aurelian cities, but of rebellion. Fragments of a forgotten war. Images of Aurelian leaders being challenged. Colonies demanding independence. The truth began to surface. Humanity was not just a colony. It was a failed solution. Long ago, during the collapse, the Aurelians had engineered a modified version of themselves, more adaptable, more emotional, more creative, to survive in unstable regions of space. Humans were meant to evolve faster, think differently, and solve problems the Aurelians could not. But the experiment went wrong. Humans developed something unexpected. Free will. Not programmed choice. Not guided evolution. True unpredictability. The Aurelians feared it. So they left. Earth was not abandoned by accident. It was quarantined. Now, millions of years later, the Aurelians were dying. Their civilization had become rigid, sterile, unable to adapt. They returned to Earth not to reclaim a colony, but to reclaim what humanity had become. The awakened humans were proof. Proof that the experiment had succeeded. And proof that the Aurelians were no longer the dominant species. Jonah stood before a hidden gathering of awakened individuals and spoke words that spread quietly through resistance networks. They didn't create us to serve them, he said. They created us to replace them. Above Earth, the Aurelian ships began powering weapons for the first time. The reclamation had failed. And the war for Earth's true purpose was about to begin. The first human strike was small. Almost imperceptible. In a quiet valley beneath the Andes, Jonah and a group of awakened humans gathered in secrecy. They had learned to hide their presence from Aurelian senses. Their bodies were changing, stronger, faster, able to withstand environmental extremes. More importantly, their minds could manipulate technology the way the Aurelians once did. The target was simple, a small Aurelian supply craft hovering near the Amazon basin. It wasn't armed, but it monitored human activity. Jonah reached out with his mind, not physically, but through subtle energy patterns no ordinary human could sense. The craft shuddered. Systems flickered. Cameras failed. Within minutes, it had crashed into the jungle. No humans died, but the ship was destroyed. The news never reached the public. The Aurelian monitoring teams labeled it an equipment failure, but the Aurelians themselves were alarmed. This is not a malfunction, one council member admitted. Humans are activating capabilities we have long suppressed. Their growth is accelerating. Meanwhile, human resistance cells began to coordinate across continents. Using hidden networks, they shared knowledge of dormant DNA activation, Aurelian weaknesses, and secret locations of ships and bases. The awakening spread like wildfire. Each new human who tapped into their latent potential brought with them memories not of themselves, but of ancestors who had survived the collapse. They recalled hidden technologies, secret star maps, and methods of energy manipulation that predated even the Aurelians' oldest records. By the 6th week, the humans were no longer just reacting, they were strategizing. The Aurelians responded cautiously at first. They attempted negotiations, sending messages through global broadcasts. Humans, their representative said, you were abandoned for your own survival. Your capabilities are promising, but uncontrolled growth endangers this planet. Stand down, and reconciliation is possible. Jonah's response was clear. Earth is ours. We will survive. We will not be contained. The first open conflict erupted in orbit. Human-engineered energy pulses, derived from reactivated DNA sequences, disabled Aurelian communication satellites. Ships fell out of formation. The Aurelians realized that their control over Earth was slipping. On the ground, humans began reclaiming sacred sites, places the Aurelians had marked as heritage zones. They found ruins beneath deserts, mountains, and oceans, revealing ancient machines capable of harnessing energy directly from the Earth itself. These technologies had been waiting for humanity to awaken. It was then that a new revelation shook both sides. The humans were not only descendants, they were superior in adaptability. The Aurelians could manipulate technology with logic and precision, but humans combined creativity, emotion, and instinct. The dormant genes allowed them to improvise in ways the Aurelians never anticipated. This advantage was crucial. In battles that followed, humans learned to disrupt Aurelian force fields, manipulate their energy weapons, and even redirect ships mid-flight. But victory came at a cost. Cities were damaged. Infrastructure was destroyed. Millions lived in fear of what might happen next. And yet, for the first time, humans felt a unity that had been absent for millennia. They were no longer divided by nation, race, or religion. They were awakened. In a secret meeting aboard an abandoned research station in the Arctic, Jonah addressed the leaders of the resistance. "We are no longer a lost colony," he said. "We are the inheritors. They left us because they could not control us. They return because they fear us. And now, we fight, not for survival alone, but for the right to define what humanity truly is." Jonah stood atop the ruins of an ancient temple in the Himalayas, now a hub for awakened humans. From here, he could feel the pulse of the conduit spreading across the planet. He turned to Myra, who was monitoring the global network of awakenings. "They are coming," she said. "The Aurelians are moving faster than we anticipated. Their warships are concentrating near the zones of greatest activation." Jonah's eyes glowed faintly. "Then we'll make them regret it." The first direct clash occurred above the Pacific Ocean. Hundreds of Aurelian ships attempted to strike simultaneously, intending to crush the human centers before they could expand further. But the awakened humans were ready. Jonah reached out with the conduit's power, synchronizing the minds of thousands across the Pacific Rim. The humans' collective will created a barrier, bending the energy of the Aurelian weapons back toward the ships. Explosions flared in the sky, and for the first time, the Aurelians suffered casualties on a massive scale. Across the world, humans saw the victories. Panic spread through Aurelian ranks. Their calm authority, once absolute, began to crack. Resistance groups coordinated attacks on ground bases and energy hubs, using both human ingenuity and the ancient machines. Humans discovered a terrifying advantage. The Aurelians could predict actions based on logic and probability, but they could not predict human creativity combined with awakened abilities. In the deserts of Africa, a group of humans repurposed ancient energy conduits to create localized gravitational fields. Entire ships hovered helplessly before being forced into controlled crashes. In the forests of South America, humans who had tapped latent plant-manipulating abilities caused entire swathes of jungle to shift, disabling Aurelian surveillance and trapping forces in living walls of vegetation. The Aurelians attempted to retaliate. Their representative addressed humanity directly through global broadcasts. "This conflict is unnecessary," the voice said. "Submit, and Earth will be preserved." Jonah replied through the same channels, his voice calm, resolute. "Earth is not yours. It never was. We were your experiment, but we have awakened. We decide now, not you." The words struck deep, shaking humans worldwide. In that moment, humanity realized its power. They were no longer children, no longer subjects. They were a civilization in its own right. Yet the Aurelians were not defeated. Their ships remained in orbit, reorganizing. They unleashed energy pulses designed to disrupt human connections with the conduit. But humans anticipated it. The pulses were absorbed, redirected, or blocked by the very planet itself, now acting in harmony with its awakened inhabitants. In one of the largest awakenings yet, Jonah tapped fully into the memory conduit. Humanity's latent potential surged outward, creating a network of interconnected minds spanning continents. People could communicate silently, coordinate globally, and manipulate energy on a scale that rivaled the Aurelian ships themselves. The Aurelians watched, increasingly desperate. The calm, measured reclaimers of Earth were now facing an unpredictable, unified, and powerful force. Inside the Aurelian Council, panic spread. "They have surpassed the design parameters," one elder said. "They are no longer ours to control." Another member countered, fear evident in their tone. "Then we must contain them, at any cost." But containment would no longer be simple. Earth itself had become a fortress, the awakened humans its defenders, and the ancient machines their allies. For the first time in millions of years, the Aurelians understood something terrifying: humanity could win. And if humanity won, the planet would no longer belong to the continuum, it would belong to those who had never truly been controlled. The war had escalated beyond reclamation. It was now a fight for freedom, identity, and survival. For both humans and the legacy they had inherited from their creators, the final phase of the war unfolded over weeks, then days, then hours. Humanity, fully awakened through the memory conduit, had transformed the planet into a living fortress. Energy flowed through the land itself, guided by human will. Oceans, forests, mountains, all responded. The Aurelians, despite their advanced technology, found themselves unable to adapt to the unpredictability of a fully awakened species. Jonah and Myra coordinated global efforts from the Himalayan Command Center, now a networked hub linking every awakened human on Earth. The memory conduit pulsed in unison with human minds, creating a force stronger than any weapon. The Aurelians launched what they believed would be the final strike, a concentrated orbital bombardment aimed at the largest human zones. But the humans anticipated it. Through the conduit, they amplified the planet's magnetic and gravitational fields, dispersing energy across orbit. Ships faltered mid-flight. Weapons misfired. Entire fleets were rendered immobile. On the ground, awakened humans surged into strategic zones, disabling Aurelian machinery with thought alone, while ancient machines, those buried for eons, rose from ruins to fight alongside them. Cities became living fortresses, energy berries shimmering over entire continents. The Aurelians, once calm and confident, were desperate. The representative appeared across every screen again, voice trembling slightly. This was not intended. You were never meant to reach this potential. Jonah's voice echoed in reply. You left us behind to survive, but you underestimated what survival creates. We are human. We are free. And Earth is ours. In the skies above, the largest human activation yet occurred. Millions of awakened humans, connected through the conduit, focused on a single objective: force the Aurelians to retreat. Waves of energy, thought, and will collided with the alien fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible were lifted, disabled, and ultimately forced to withdraw beyond the solar system. For the first time, silence fell over Earth, not the fearful silence of waiting, but the calm silence of victory. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. In the days that followed, the Aurelians did not return. Messages came intermittently, acknowledging defeat and expressing a begrudging respect. You have exceeded the design. Earth is no longer ours to claim. We will observe, but not intervene. Humanity had reclaimed the planet, not through submission or fear, but through awakening, unity, and the rediscovery of its own potential. Jonah addressed the global population through the conduit, a voice carried to millions simultaneously. Earth was once a colony. We were once their experiment. But now, Earth is ours. We are no longer the children of the continuum. We are human, free, united, and awake. We will honor the planet, its history, and our future. Let this be the beginning of our true civilization. Myra watched him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the activated cities. For the first time, she whispered, we are truly alive. Across the world, humans began rebuilding, not just cities, but society itself. Ancient technologies merged with human ingenuity. Knowledge once lost was now reclaimed. The planet thrummed with life and energy, alive in a way it had never been before. The memory of the Aurelians lingered, not as masters, but as creators who had inadvertently forged something beyond their comprehension. Humans now stood as a species capable of shaping not only Earth, but the future of the stars. And somewhere in the quiet of the vast universe, other civilizations surely noticed the rise of a new force, humans, awakened, united, and ready to define their destiny on their own terms. For Earth was no longer a colony. It was a home. It was humanity's. It was the beginning of a civilization that would never again be forgotten.